GM. GM, 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 GM. So, daily levels, Tuesday, 5th of March. Are we going to hit all-time high today? Certainly seems like it with the way Bitcoin is holding up and bouncing here. We pushed right up just shy of all-time high. We just touched 68,850 on Bybit. All-time high slightly above us on the spot exchanges. Coinbase, we're just shy by a few dollars, as you can see here. Same again. All-time high is exactly 69 on Coinbase. We touched 68,849. And on Binance, same thing. 68,686 with all-time high at 69. So we'll get there. No worries about that. But I think, one of the things with how volatile it is at the moment, you don't want to be getting long here because you only want to get long at the extremes. So if you got long on this bounce, great. I hope you took some profit. If you get long here, I hope you're planning to take some profit or have your risk defined. Reason being is this range is super volatile, right? That's a 5-6% drop. And if you get long at 64.9, you're immediately getting a big 4% move in very short space of time. Because we're getting close to all-time high. Volatility is increasing. There's leverage flushes. But what you don't want to see is this, right? Because someone's going to come in and say, oh, wow, Bitcoin's at 66.8. Well, that's easy. It's obviously going to all-time high. So I just have this free money trade where I can get 3%, lever it up, right? If I 10x leverage this, I can get a 30% move in Bitcoin, and all-time high must come today, right? It's guaranteed, which is not guaranteed. So typically, when it gets this close, it's actually going to take a little bit longer than people would expect. Let's go and look at some past examples of BTC at its all-time high, and not to look and pattern match, not to look at the way the pattern looked before all-time high or anything like that. What we are going to look at is the time, right? The pullbacks and the timing of them. So I get all-time high here, and then we drop down to 15-minute. You can see here. So first time Bitcoin come up just shy of all-time high here, and had a relatively quick sell-off over the next sort of 24 hours, or let's say about 18, 24 hours. Sold off all the way down from Wednesday into Thursday, and that drop was significant, right? That was a 16-17% move. I can't begin to tell you if Bitcoin does that now, how absolutely obliterated alts will get just from leverage buildup. But what Bitcoin's doing so far is more like this, where, as you can see this morning, where it's dropped down. We've had our second test. We're probably going to grind along. And then, but if Bitcoin starts to grind up like that now, that will hit all-time high. So what my point is when you get so close and people who are long, they don't take profit. They're like, I'll take profit at all-time high. Then suddenly it starts to get away from them. Other people keep buying because they're like, it's a free run to all-time high, free run to all-time high. Then it wrecks them. And we ran up, actually touched the all-time high, and then sold off. And then this is what I think will happen to us today. Or not today, this week. I'll go back to that one in a sec. But from the first moment, right? So up here is where it got really close. From that point until the proper breakout was, let's look at time now. It was 20 days later. Yeah. So a lot of stuff can go on in here. And again, when you zoom out absolutely none of this was bearish, right? This wasn't bearish in the slightest. It was a quick dip down, bounced back up, held, away we go. Where did it hold on? Daily bands. Daily bands held perfectly. A couple of wicks down below them. Did we touch a 50 EMA? Maybe. Might have front ran it ever so slightly. 50 EMA. Yeah, we front ran it. So it held the bands. Let's go back one more. And here's the previous all-time high from 2013's all-time high that we broke in 2017. We'll take a look at that as well. My main point here is people try to front run the all-time high. So if you front run the all-time high by buying spot at 66 or 67 or 68 and you just wait, history has shown that you're proven right. But if you try to front run the all-time high with leverage, history has shown that's not a great idea. So like we did over here, this got a lot choppier. So let's drop down to a lower time frame again. Look at this. Right, first time we come up to it, we had our initial pullback. Look familiar? Similar, obviously, you know, a lot more volatile, a lot less liquid of an asset, a lot more fucking crazy wicks. But we came close to all-time high, sell off, test it again, held it, grind it up, took out the all-time high this time. But from that first sell-off, we went down 10%. We had a second drop and a third drop, right? We had a second dip here, we had a third dip here, and then it took more than, what, a week? Took basically a week to actually reach back to the all-time high. Then it got fucking crazy. Then we hit all-time high and had initially a 12% pullback. Then we took out the all-time high again and then had a 25% pullback. Bounced up again, right? And had a total of 32% from here all the way till it actually bottomed. And then again, timing, if you zoom out, and then it actually, from this, let's say from this sweep that had the 33% pullback, we then actually broke out above the all-time high 45 days later and above the previous high 48 days later. And then away it went, and there was no looking back. And this one pulled back much deeper, right? This pulled back probably into the 200. Yep, right back into the 200-day EMA. And what did it do? 3 push. 1, 2, and the third push was the bottom. And that took from the 10th of March to 25th of March, right? That's 15 days of brutal, aggressive shakeout before we went higher. So the closer we get, this is kind of where people get caught out. So the closer we get to it, like we are now, the more likely it is that we hit the all-time high, right? We are so close that it's going to break all-time high. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But as a trader, it's what happens in between, right? Between now and then, what happens? So you've seen all manner of things that can happen. And I just wouldn't be saying, oh, well, this is going to hold here today and break all-time high. Now, it could. But the market doesn't tend to give people free rides. So back to my point about spot. If you bought Bitcoin here or here, you bought spot, or even if you're buying spot here and you're happy to hold for a couple of months, you might see some crazy downside and chop and all this kind of shit, and then end up higher later on, sure. But leverage is where it gets really tricky. People will try and front run this on leverage. Now, if you use if there's people using 2x leverage or 3x leverage or whatever, are we going to drop 50%? Probably not. Are we going to drop 33%? Probably not. But 10 to 20%, anyone using relatively high leverage, yeah, it's not safe, right? 15% would take us back to the pivot. And it only has to go there on a wick. It only has to go there on a shakeout. It depends how much leverage is built up versus how much underlying demand there is. I think it's reasonable to say that there should be more underlying spot demand here than there ever has been with the ETF flows. And you saw yet another day of massive flows. BlackRock 420 million, Fidelity 406, almost 100, ARK on 40. Some outflows in some of the other ones. And then obviously GBTC smashed out a 368 million sell, but net 562, one of our biggest days. So huge, another big inflow day, net inflow day. So the demand is there, and that was from yesterday, where Monday from here. So all of those inflows came above 65. Those inflows, that was all aggressive buying here. This was net ETF buying up into the highs. Push back down. If that level keeps holding, and this what I've marked as the SR with a question mark, unconfirmed support, but currently holding nicely, was resistance, held as support again. Uh, I would say possibly we come down and take all that out, but if that holds, that could well take us to the all-time high. The question then is, do we blast through, or do we do one of these fake outs, go lower again, and then pump? Right? There's a bunch of different ways it can come. If you're looking at it though as a short-term trader, you have to wait until it's at a real extreme. So I would say for me, taking out all of this would show that anyone who bought this first dip and put their stop too tight is getting wrecked. So if we were to do that, taking a long here is not a bad shout, because you can define your risk and you know your target. And you've waited for others who bought the first dip and bought the second dip to get taken out. That's a solid one. And from there, we'll see where it goes. So that would be my views and my approach on the market at the moment. It's still all about Bitcoin. The focus is on Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance. BTCD is selling off since the highs as people chase into alts after Bitcoin had its attempt and failed. But I don't see Bitcoin dominance going down to the 50s. I don't see this as being the alt season, because in both scenarios, I either see Bitcoin going back up from here and breaking out, which would mean the market's going to chase Bitcoin again, or we have deeper pullbacks, in which case I would expect alts to get a bit more flushed as people buy the dip on them. So BTCD, especially on the weekly, which the higher time frame is where you should look at it, Bitcoin dominance on the weekly is still just strong, right? It's holding up nicely. It's looking like a dominance run is still ongoing. I wouldn't be confident in saying Bitcoin dominance is topped at all here. ETH BTC probably having a little reaction off the lows. Right, it was selling off for several days. It's had a nice little bounce. ETH itself is holding up nicely, pushing up above that liquidity level. That level is a key level for me with ETH. If it keeps holding, right? If it stays above that, that's good on the low time frames. But be mindful that, Ethereum can easily dip back below that if Bitcoin does. And it's just been straight up since the 6th of Feb with basically no pullbacks. So, in short, spot buyers with patience on Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything, spot buyers are going to be fine. Might have to see a pullback, might have to wait a couple of weeks, might have to wait a month, but spot buyers will be fine. It's leverage traders that are at risk, right? Even Ethereum, like Ethereum hasn't, it's at a 5% pullback. Ethereum hasn't even had a 10% pullback yet in any of this. So for Ethereum to have a 10% pullback, it's only taken us to there. That's to take out 10x leverage. 15% pullback takes out almost all leverage and just brings us into the bands. So some kind of a wick down, a shakeout like that is, quite likely. And it doesn't have to be. It can be like this. It can just be chopping around, doing that, doing this, building a base, and then away it goes. Right? It can take a month. It can take a week or two. I wouldn't be like rushing in to get long into this. If you're holding spot long, you're fine. If you're not holding spot, if you're holding leverage, not a good place to be adding leverage. Wherever you think is safe is not safe. So it's probably going to look like we're not going to pull back. It's probably going to hold and keep pushing and hold and keep pushing, but the all-time high is not an easy trade. It's not free money, and you need to wait until you get a proper risk-reward setup, which if you're down in the wicks, you're fine. If you're sitting here, bad place to add any leverage. today's New York session will obviously be the one to watch. And the trickiest part to trade is now, between now and the New York session, which is what, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. So about 5 hours away. In these 5 hours, you can see messy price action. In these 5 hours, you can see choppy, you know, uh, market bouncing up, people wanting to get long, bleeding them back out, taking it out. New York session begins, straight up flows, just like we did yesterday's New York session. That was a 500 mil inflow day. If we get another one of those, it'll take us back up towards the highs. But if we hit that, we take all that out, don't be surprised if it has yet another sell off, down even lower. Take that out, and maybe then we begin the march higher. So expect everything. I would say expect deeper corrections. Expect it to take longer, right? Timing wise, expect it to spend more time going up and more time going down. So everyone's like, well, we got so close on Monday, we must hit it on Tuesday. But I could be here, and I wouldn't be surprised if I'm here tomorrow saying, yeah, we didn't hit all time high again. And then on Thursday, yeah, we didn't hit it on Wednesday, we didn't hit it on Tuesday. On Thursday, we didn't hit it on Wednesday. On Friday, we didn't hit it on Thursday. Oh, look, we didn't even hit it this week. And the longer it takes, the more people are likely to capitulate. And really, all Bitcoin's doing when you zoom out, it's just up near the highs, holding nicely, and it's probably going to form some kind of base. Even just look at the consolidation we did from Wednesday until this breakout on Monday. That was 5 or 6 days. Timing wise, right? Price can easily just chop around, and then we're here Sunday, right? We're here at the end of the week, and nothing bearish has happened on the high time frames. It's just been chopping, but people will get themselves completely wrecked by trying to over leverage catching the big breakout. And I don't think that's a good idea. So if you're sitting in spot, good. If you're adding leverage, make sure you add it at places where other people are getting stopped out, right? Your entry should be their stops. So that means you have to wait for sweeps, wait for big red candles, and wait for some blood to be seen. And otherwise, just take time. It doesn't have to break out today. If it does, excellent. That'd be fantastic. If it breaks out today, we'd be flying. But price can spend a lot of time going sideways, building value, building up a base before a breakout. So that's it. GM, lower the leverage, stay in spot, and be tactical about where you add your trades.